So we can. So the recording is in progress. We are officially launching this event. So Excellencies, dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to who is with us on Zoom or to who is later watching this video. The Geneva Environment Network would like to thank our friends of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association and the other co-conveners of the second Environmental Peacebuilding Conference to host this session on mobilizing international Geneva for environmental peacebuilding. The second Environmental Peacebuilding Conference is now taking place virtually, but was supposed to come physically to Geneva, and thus has mobilized many actors active from Geneva, referred to as the capital of multilateralism. Gathering a large pool of expertise on both environment and conflict-related issues, organizations in Geneva can indeed play an important role in promoting environmental peacebuilding and exploring the interlinkages with other work streams. In this context, we have taken the opportunity of this second Environmental Peacebuilding Conference to discuss the mobilization of international Geneva for environmental peacebuilding, and this is why you have joined us today. Before we go into depth with today's discussion, let me remind you that the summary and the video of this event will be made available on the webpage of this event, and my colleagues will be sharing the link in the chat. Throughout the event, you can raise your questions by using the chat box, and the moderator, our chair today, will use your questions to feed the discussion after the presentations. So now it's time for me to introduce you today's the chair of today's dialogue, Philippe Rock, who is here with me in the room. Philippe is the former Swiss State Secretary for the Environment and member of the board of the Geneva Center for Security Policy. We are particularly happy to welcome him today as the father of the International Environment House, where a large part of our panel is sitting today, and also as the father of the Geneva Environment Network co-convening this session. With that, Philippe, over to you.
Thank you, Diana. It's a pleasure to be here. State Secretary for Switzerland had to inaugurate, to open this house 23 years ago. And since that time, it has developed a lot, and especially because of the fantastic work of the Geneva Environment Network with animating this house, with its fairy godmother, Diana Isolio, who has made a lot to facilitate cooperation, coordination among all multilateral environmental organizations, and private or public. And I'm very happy to see how this house has developed and can now host this international conference on peacebuilding and environment. This subject, this issue has been always very strong in my heart, because I am an environmentalist, even a fundamentalist environmentalist. And I always try to contribute that environment is taken over by all other activities in this world. One moment, crucial moment for that was the Rio conference in 1992, 50 years now, where we had the hope that economy, social development, and environment would really converge in a successful, sustainable development. It did not go so well, but the issue is still actual, and we have to work for that. One first remark I want to make is that if environment may be a cause of conflicts, because of scarce resources, people wanted to get these resources. In our history, it has been much more a source of cooperation. And the example I like to give for that is water. In the old times, water and the cooperation around water has been the cause of the first great civilizations, because people had to work together to manage this resource. And this example gives me hope that our preoccupation for environment, water, forests, climate change, biodiversity could really be a factor of cooperation among countries and not a factor of aggressivity or war. This is my hope, and I think this is the sense of this conference, to put this forward. Geneva can play an important role in this issue because of this privilege this republic has to host the European Center of UNEP, many other organizations, many also representations of different countries. And this is one, it is not the only place, it is one place where we can really work together to put forward this issue of caring for environment in a good cooperation spirit among countries. And I'm very happy that we may announce today, it was made yesterday, I think, the publication of this white paper on the future of environmental peace building. It's a very interesting text, very short. Everybody can read that, and it is completed by many, 50, I think, testimonies about actions in the environmental peace building. And it's a fantastic source of information and of hope for the future. So after this short introduction, I have the pleasure to give the floor to our panelists. They will all present their view, very diverse contributions, and then we will have a possibility to ask questions and to discuss together. The first person is my neighbor, Annika Eriksson-Pearson. She is the head of community management in the Geneva Peacebuilding platform. The right person to reintroduce our subject, peacebuilding, environment, and Geneva. Annika, I'm very pleased to give you the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much, Philippe, and thank you, Diana, and our colleagues at the Geneva Environment Network for inviting me here. I'll try to look straight into the camera for those of you who are at home, and also to speak slowly for the interpreters. So if there's a comment in the chat, Diana, that I'm speaking too quickly, just interrupt me. I have to say I'm a bit intimidated to go first. I'm looking forward to hear from our esteemed colleagues and excellencies. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say later. But I think I was invited to speak now to provide a bit of context and background. I must say I'm not a topical expert in environmental peace building. I am a community organizer and a community builder, and I've been working on this issue in Geneva for about 2 years, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in my remarks today. But what I want to cover is essentially 3 things. I want to talk about environmental peace building, I want to talk about international Geneva, and I want to talk about where they go together. So to start with environmental peace building, and I do start here with the recognition that there are probably some folks who are watching this or who are here today who haven't been attending the rest of the conference. I also know that there are many of experts, of practitioners, of researchers and scholars on the issue who are attending. So if I butcher the definition or not, please feel free to put resources in the chat. I know this is an ongoing kind of discussion within our fields. But I want to start with the definition of environmental peace building, which you can find in this white paper compendium. We have a few different articles that discuss definitions, but it's really conceived as, and I quote, an overarching framework. Environmental peace building includes both the environment dimensions of peace building and the peace dimensions of sustainable development. Honestly, it's not quite far off from what you discussed with Rio. We haven't come too far. Yes. And that is from Carl Bruch, of course, Erica Weinthal, Mackenzie Johnson, and Tobias Eid from the white paper. Now it's an overarching framework. It's a broad field. And this, in fact, is one of the critiques that was brought up yesterday by Ms. Louise Grande from the United States Institute for Peace at the plenary session, which is that perhaps we're even too wide, and that one of our challenges when it comes to interacting with policy and policymakers is that we must kind of hone in and prioritize. Another challenge is that while we may call this environmental peace building, others may refer to it as climate security. In fact, climate security is the framework through which much of the UN system engages with this topic. I know many of you know this. We have the climate security mechanism, we have debates within the UN Security Council, and Celia Halley also brought up a lot of interesting examples on Tuesday's plenary of different ways that climate security is engaged within the UN system. I think I wanted to outline the environmental peace building sort of climate security definition dilemma right at the beginning, as I think it's important that we may be speaking with some different terms. At the Geneva Peacebuilding platform, we call it the intersection of environment, climate, conflict, and peace. And we should probably put another C in there for conservation as well. In order to try to bridge these frames, this environmental peace building. I will say the difference, the environmental peace building frame, I think is used in some ways to put an emphasis on peace, to put an emphasis on opportunities rather than on security responses, rather than sort of preparing for or adjusting to security risks. It's about trying to sort of highlight and work towards those opportunities. Although again, the debate continues. We had Tracy Hart yesterday in a session reminding us that a lot of development banks also don't necessarily work with the frame of environmental peace building. Now, the point to all of this, right, all of these different lenses and labels and definitions is that there is a very clear ecosystem of voices that are working on this issue, and that addressing biodiversity loss can be a tool for peace. Transboundary water management can be a tool for peace. Transboundary gorilla migration tourism management can be a tool for peace, which is a great example within the white paper. So that's kind of this environmental peace building landscape that I want to situate us in. The second point I wanted to come to is to talk about International Geneva. And to talk about International Geneva, I first start with what we are not. We are not the communities around the world that are experiencing challenges around environmental degradation, natural resource scarcity and abundance, and the effects of climate change in the same way in Geneva. We are not those communities. We are also not New York. And I think it's important to bring this up. In New York, we have clearly the climate security mechanism I mentioned. We have the UN Security Council. We have the UN peacebuilding architecture and fund, and all of these sort of bigger parts of the UN system. And I bring that up because I actually don't think that within Geneva, we need to duplicate or replicate the efforts within New York. We have our own footprint to make. So if we think about what Geneva is the Ville de la Paix for the world. It's the home of the Human Rights Council. It's the home of humanitarian organizations and development organizations, and a veritable network of international organizations and NGOs, both full of experts and researchers, but also organizations that are intimately connected to those communities I mentioned earlier. It's also, Geneva is also the home to the United Nations, and through the United Nations, many of the missions and states from around the globe that we're able to connect to decision makers and understand the policy challenges when it comes to these issues. Geneva is quite simply the center of a lot. So I would argue that we don't necessarily need to create something new within Geneva on environmental peace building, but rather to harness and to channel what we have. So then I come to my third and kind of final point to make, which is where environmental peace building and International Geneva come together. As I mentioned before, my organization works on this issue. We've been working on it for about 2 years through the view of a project called the Geneva Dialogue on Environment, Climate, Conflict, and Peace. The goals of this dialogue are to foster interinstitutional collaboration and coordination, to promote shared learning and innovation, and then to mainstream these issues into different organizations, to bring peace and conflict sensitivity to the environment, climate, and conservation worlds, and then to bring a better understanding of environmental science to the peace, security, and conflict worlds. We do this through briefings. We do this through coordinating some of the Geneva-based contributions to this conference. And then perhaps most well known by now is through this white paper on the future of environmental peace building, which has been coming up quite a lot over the last couple of days. So Geneva is active on this issue. I just wanted to give a few examples of different ways that Geneva is active, and then I'll wrap up my remarks. Within UN bodies, we have, for example, the United Nations Environment Program, in whose Environment House we sit today. We have the International Union for Conservation of Nature, who has a recent flagship report on conservation and conflicts. We have the UNHCR, we have the IOM. We're very much fans of acronyms here in Geneva, so I apologize for not spelling those out. But we have many actors within the UN framework and international organizations that are working to advance these issues. We also have other organizations that are not a part of that structure, like the Geneva Water Hub, like Earth Justice, or the Peace Nexus Foundation, whose executive director Katrina spoke yesterday at the plenary. And finally, we have peace and conflict organizations. We have the Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance, the Geneva Center for Security Policy, Interpeace, the Quaker United Nations Office, and of course, the Research Center on Conflict Development and Peace Building at the Graduate Institute, which are focusing on peace and bringing in environmental dimensions. So together with this ecosystem, all of these actors, I've left so many out. And in fact, if you're watching this and you're Geneva based and we haven't been in touch, let's please be in touch. My job as a community organizer. We also get the chance to interact with states. We have Mongolia and we have Switzerland here today. Yesterday, we heard from Fiji and from Sweden. There are many other states participating actively on this issue in the UN Security Council. So you get the picture. We're actually one of the projects we hope to embark upon this year is to develop a map of environmental peace building and climate security within Geneva. So I'm running out of time. I would love later, if it's possible, to discuss a little bit more the how of collaboration, because we're sort of at this maturity point where we know we need to be talking. And there are some ways that we can try to foster that collaboration. But I think what's clear is that next, we, as the sort of climate security, I guess I could say environment, climate, conflict, and peace community in Geneva, we need to build better connections and relationships with policymakers and with missions. We want to understand your challenges and be able to provide support and evidence-based recommendations. So there's quite a lot to dig into here. The opportunities are there, the activity is there. And I just want to thank you again for inviting me. I'm really honored and humbled to be here. So back over to you.
Thank you so much, Annika. And what you said about Geneva makes me so happy. We are very proud, very happy as Geneva people that our city is able to offer this platform in general for international cooperation. And I take this opportunity to praise FIPWA, who is servicing this platform so well and so efficiently. But we are 50 years after Stockholm. And I would take also this opportunity to mention that if Geneva may play this fantastic role, it is not alone. It is just part of the world. It's because of the goodwill of all participants, all countries, that it is possible. But I would like to mention after Geneva and New York, Nairobi. For environment, Nairobi is absolutely crucial. It was right at Stockholm who created the UNEP to put it in Africa. It's obliged for the Western countries to never forget developing countries which need our support, but also can teach us so much in the relationship we should develop with our environment. So I wanted to add Nairobi to your presentation. And thank you very much for what you've done. I look forward for the discussion after. Now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Ambassador Felix Bauman. He is Deputy Permanent Representative of Switzerland to the UN office in Geneva. But in addition to that, he is a Permanent Representative of Switzerland to the Conference on Disarmament. So you see how much his duty and his experience can really bring also ideas and I hope also hopes and visions for our subject of today. And Excellency, Ambassador Bauman, you have the floor. Per Zoom, all for us.
Yes, dear Mr. Rock, dear Philippe, and ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it's good afternoon. First of all, from the Swiss mission, it's a real pleasure for me to be with you. I would of course like to be in the Environment House together with you this afternoon, but as you just said, we had a meeting of the Conference on Disarmament this morning until 1, and so I just jumped from the Palais to my office. It was a bit more convenient, but anyway, let me thank you so much and congratulate the organizers for this really rich program this week. And indeed, environment, climate, conflict, and peace, of course, is a very topical and a pressing issue, and one I'm sure also on my side that will gain more momentum still in the future here in international Geneva. You said before, Philippe, the links, the multiple links that we have between, on the one hand side, the environment and climate and peace and security are certainly not new. I mean, it's a long time we talk about this, but yet the international community still has, in a way, to frame in the right way in order to prevent conflict, to foster sustainable peace and development. And now on international Geneva, also let me say a few words. How could I not? But I want maybe touch a bit a different angle that what Annika just said. But as Annika said, I mean, international Geneva is not certainly not duplicating other multilateral hubs, but rather work with them in a synergetic way. Historically speaking, there are 5 main areas where Geneva has developed over the decades a strong know-how. One, of course, is the whole pillar on peace, security, and especially disarmament here in Geneva. Then we have, on the other hand, the humanitarian sector, humanitarian act, but also, of course, international humanitarian law, human rights, and migration. And then we have precisely what is the key interest today: environment and sustainable development. And then we have also quite one from the early days of international Geneva: labor, trade, science, telecommunications, and then another one extremely important, of course, especially now in the current time, but not much beyond, is health. Global health. So Annika mentioned some of the organizations that we have here. So I want to come back to this, but let me just maybe frame it differently. The angles. How can international Geneva? Where is the potential of international Geneva to bring together these different strands when it comes to environmental peace? I think, or I would say, there are maybe five main angles. The first one, and I think that's the key: the strengthening of the networks between science, between the scientific community, between the political actors, the states, and the operational actors which are located here in Geneva, but also beyond, in New York, in Nairobi, in the field. And also, of course, civil society, that's obvious, but also maybe even the private sector. So I think we really have developed a certain expertise in this in Geneva. But then also, of course, second, to harness the wealth of all the existing knowledge and the data that all those different organizations have, and make that available and raise awareness. Then also, and that's of course also a historic task of Geneva, is normative aspect, so strengthening the normative framework but then also the implementation of the existing instruments. Then on the operational side, identify, design, and find the right response mechanisms. And then another one, of course, also traditional to Geneva, that's the dialogue. I mean, the creation of protected spaces for dialogue which should allow us to help find or offer solutions to prevent, but also, of course, to offer solutions to concrete conflicts. And for all of this, of course, interdisciplinary approach, that's the key word, or the key aim that we should look at as we are in a cross-sectoral challenge. So of course also the answer and the actors have to come from all those different sides. But I think very concretely, the process that led to the white paper on environmental peacebuilding that was mentioned before, that Annika just presented, I think that's really one concrete and an excellent example of the Geneva based expertise, how it can look at in a very concrete way at a certain issues. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate you and all the partners that have made really this hard and amazing work over the I think past 2 years, and now also bring it forward. And we as Switzerland are very proud to have supported it indirectly as the host country of International Geneva. In fact, we do support a certain number of what we call them platforms, and the aim is precisely for those platforms to create networks to foster interdisciplinary and multi-stakeholder cooperations. That's an approach that we deliberately, as a host country, have sought a few years ago. And so the Geneva Environment Platform, of course, is on the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform, the Geneva Water Hub that has been mentioned before, and there are others in other areas. And here again, I think they have been now very active and incremental in the elaboration of this white paper. Now, let me, I don't want to take any much longer, but just a few, maybe one or two examples on not on Geneva, but on Switzerland's action or commitment in this field. I mean, of course, there would be many other examples. I think Philippe, you mentioned at the beginning water as the potential for cooperation or war. Well, also for us, I mean, we've been involved in this field actively. For example, through the Blue Peace Initiative, which was launched with 14 other countries, and I think that's one tangible contributions where it was the initiative helped. I mean, in areas that where we experienced water scarcity, which is combined with climate change, how the common management of shared water resources has made it possible to reduce tensions and to promote somehow stable relations between different states and stakeholders. And so the role of the Geneva Water Hub, to take that example, precisely helps to build those bridges to prevent and resolve water-related conflicts, and to promote the use of water as an instrument of peace. And again, it's one of those examples that the hub provides safe spaces for dialogue. Currently, now focusing, for example, on the Sahel region. And again, this I think this work in a safe space mode is one more example of how it taps the numerous resources and actors that we have here in Geneva. Another example is Switzerland's program for the prevention of violent extremism, where again we're working with many partners, and here one of the partners is the co-initiative of change, and we have organized last year two workshops on land and security in the Sahel region. Another engagement, this time together with Norway, aimed at protecting those persons afflicted by disaster displaced persons. That's for example, the Nansen Initiative, which led to the Global Protection Agenda, and also few years ago to the platform on disaster displacement. And then, of course, we can mention the work of the ICRC when it comes to the impact of warfare and on the environment, and especially also the ICRC has launched just a few weeks ago the ICRC's guidelines on the protection of the natural environment in armed conflicts, and that's also I think a very important document and example. So I think I already overstretched my allotted time. So in conclusion, again, I think the program this week shows, or it seems to me that we have really a whole set compendium of rigorous analysis and practical experiences in this field. We have a wealth, again, I guess, of knowledge, of methods, of practices that have been developed on the academic at the academic level, on the scientific side. Now, as a representative of a government, of course, an important question that we have is how do we use science, or how do we maybe not use, how do we make the best of scientific knowledge in our policy work on the ground, and how can we move further on towards an environmental peace agenda. And I think again, this conference is extremely important in this endeavor. I mean, we need a dialogue. Governments need to tap on this experience, and at the same time, they have, of course, an active role to play in the discussion, as in the end they will be the implementers of those policies. So let me stop here, dear Philippe. Thank you for the excellent moderation. Thank you also for the organizers for all your efforts, and also we look forward to the mapping study that has been mentioned before, which certainly will be of great help to well, also to us in Geneva, but even more for those not in Geneva, on tracking and explaining who the actors are and what they do. Now let me just apologize due to an unplanned event. I will unfortunately have to leave you before about 10-15 minutes, and I'm really sorry about that. I would really have like to stay until the end. But back to you, Philippe. Thank you so much.
And to make it possible, really, it's really a nice perspective, and thank you so much to have accepted to be on this panel, and especially for all the things you will do in the next time and next year. Thank you so much for participating. Now we have a second representative of a government, a country, a little bigger than Switzerland, the country. Really, I'm very happy to welcome Ambassador Professor Lundek from Mongolia, and he is the permanent representative of Mongolia to the United Nations in Geneva. So we are very happy to listen to you for your perspective, your experience with this platform, international platform of Geneva. And we hope you are satisfied with it, but do not hesitate to bring some critics and proposals. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Roch, giving me the floor. Thank you, organizers, for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here today again. So I'm quite often in the Environmental House, and also we have launched, I think, just during the COVID last year, the greening of the Mongolian, Russian, and Chinese economic corridor that was here, and we are working also at the Swiss side very closely. So as diplomat, as ambassador, is enjoying to work in Geneva. It's quite busy, and just the ambassador Bauman told us now she is coming from CD, and they're just coming from the WTO. And also before that, early in the morning, also was in this, and also in the CD. So I'm counting here everything, and also including the bilaterals to the Switzerland, also some other Liechtenstein, Vatican. So you see that they're smaller countries. They are, of course, their lack of the manpower, and then therefore we are quite busy. Despite we are just today we had the public holiday in Mongolia. It's the New Year. The Asia is quite diverse. The China has 3 days ago, I think, New Year. We have just yesterday the New Year, and then also Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Tiger. So Geneva is special, especially for the diplomacy. It's special also for the environment. So my background is also diplomacy and then a security background. I served as national security advisor, the formerly advisor for 2 presidents. And what is the Mongolian security concerns? Of course, we are sandwiched between the 2 big powers, the Russia and China, and the large territory landlocked is big weakness for us, and they cut all the access to the sea, to the world. What is changing now is all the digitalization is the access to the market, access to the sea for the landlocked countries. And on the other hand, Mongolia is climate rapidly changing. Mongolia, because continental climate, so far away from the sea, so we are experiencing really what is the climate change in reality. The world average, I think 0 point something, but we are experiencing within the last 70 years 2.5 degrees. The change in climate change in Mongolia.
Oh, no.
So that's Mongolia is large, the 18th largest the territory in the world, but very very few populations, only over 3 million. So it's the most sparsely populated country in the world. But on the other hand, we are experiencing that very, very huge challenge for us, like everywhere in the world. And then now in the diplomacy is the first emerging issue. Including the smaller, bigger countries, is the climate change. Therefore, the diplomacy has no talks without any environment angles. So in that momentum, it's very happy to work here in Geneva, and the Geneva is really, as we are saying, the Geneva is the kitchen in the diplomacy. But there are some others, there are some other names, but really the Geneva is playing a major role in the bringing together all the players. So in that terms, the Geneva Environment Network is really crucial. And as the Ambassador Bauman already mentioned, the standard normatives, so ISO, and then also UNEC is here. Mongolia is also big mining industry. For the mining is important now in environment standards. So therefore, we are also very open. Despite we are not the member of the UNEC, but we are very open in the UNEC, talking about what is the standards to secure the more environmental friendly green technology, the reducing to the mining and others. So on the other hand, also the WHO here. So air pollution is a problem worldwide. It will be now more and more urbanization. So for the urban areas, is the air pollution is one big issue. I think 2 years ago, the first time the WHO organized the first world conference on the air pollution. So Mongolia is very interested to learn and actively participate in that area, because you maybe wonder why for the Mongolia is important air pollution, but the half of the population of Mongolia is living in the capital city Ulaanbaatar. So city is designed about for 500,000 people, but it's now 3 times more. The reason is the domestic migration. It's again the international migration centers in Geneva. So because the land degradation, desertification because the climate change and there's more and more rivers, also lakes are disappearing, and then over 70% of the Mongolian territory is under the threat of the desertification. So it's very dangerous situation for the nomadic pasture-based the tradition of Mongolia. So more and more people then move into the city. So the big half of the Ulaanbaatar is on the suburbs. Ulaanbaatar is still the coal cooking or coal-based heating. So that's bringing all that air pollution. Ulaanbaatar capital city is one of the most the air pollution alarming cities in the world in the winter time. Yeah. So that is the one impact you see. Again, the migration is we should learn. I think we know from history in 7th, 8th, or 6th century. Somehow even the today's Turks, they somehow suddenly moved to the west. It's called in the history the big migration time. Yeah. But why suddenly people started to move suddenly? That was now more and more scientific evidence that was the climate change. Already that time was big climate change. Something happened, therefore is the whole people moved from that central Asian area to the west until the Black Sea. So you see that also in the history that was also some changes, and then we are facing again. And white paper is absolutely, thank you for sharing me, and then that is very, very incredible, I think, paper, as you pointed out rightly, is very compact. It's very compact, it's easy to read. I hope that we're going to enjoy it. And another, as bilateral ambassador to the Switzerland, I would like to say also the Swiss Development Corporation, also especially we're working very, very closely with the Geneva Water Hub. Yeah. So Mongolia is like Switzerland as an upstream country. So Swiss has big experiences how to deal with the neighbors, with the water. So water could be not only source of the cooperation, water could be source of the conflict. And therefore, the Swiss is dealing with that experience with the upstream countries, then Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. So that was my idea. We talked to the SDC, and then please look Mongolia, because the climate change is so impacting that our glaciers are melting. Yeah. Melting, and we don't know what is the impact. And therefore, SDC is doing now, watching what is the impact of the Mongolian mountains areas, the glaciers. And we are working with the Water Hub, particularly on one issue. For example, Mongolia is always the scarcity of the water. We could not build because smaller rivers are freezing in the winter, and then they could not build the big dams or hydropower stations. But one big river we wanted to build the hydropower and to secure the sufficient energy for the country. Which power? The hydropower. Hydro. Okay. But Russia has a concern because that river's water is going to the Baikal Sea. So Russia is concerned, and therefore is stopped it. And then, but if you look closely, even without the hydropower there, now the level of the water in the Baikal Sea is very, very low, even without that one. So therefore, we are looking working toward the water hub, water hub, how we could deal with that. And then with that, I think the Switzerland could deliver to the world, not only for the Mongolian, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, all that, also in Latin American countries, how to deal with that transboundary water issues. Is again also that's convention in UN, UNEC convention, and all others. Also another one is there. We have also conservation organizations here that is important for Mongolia, and we would like to keep also that tradition, nomadic tradition of the green, pure green as nature Mongolian. But on the other hand, we would like also secure some modern life for the population. In that terms, the Geneva is very good hub really for the diplomacy and then for the environment and for the talks to the brain. Thank you.
Excellency, thank you so much. You are witnessing a complex situation in your country, depending from the whole world with climate change. What are we doing with this? I have to say, I'm very moved by what you say, and I feel concerned. And I hope that these different platforms in Geneva and the water really help you in this very difficult situation. And I'm happy that you find here at least a moral support, but I hope it comes to concrete and also worldwide to concrete decisions to really save not only a country, but a civilization that you, yes, in your country represents. Thank you so much. And it's a little hard, I have to say. I will think about that long time because you really made me very sensitive to the situation. I hope that Geneva can also bring some help with water, because the name of Geneva means the place where water is generated. Gen, Eva, that is water. And we have in the museum here a piece of a stone with which praise Geneva, the goddess of water in Geneva. So this is just for a small history, but I really hope that this generation of water in Geneva can really bring benediction to your country, and that in concrete, the platforms here may really help you find solutions. Thank you so much for testimony. It's really moving and interesting. We will discuss that after. So people have some questions. They come now to Lina Hillat, and thank you to be here with us. She runs the Environmental Peacemaking program at the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, and it's a very good complement to all aspects we have dealt with here, because this relationship with humanitarian affairs and environment, and we look forward to listen to you, Lina.
Yeah, thank you very much, Philippe, and also thank you to the organizers and the panelists that spoke before me. So yeah, I will focus a little bit more on the implementation side and show how a Geneva-based organization operationalizes this nexus between environment, climate, conflict, and peace. So as Philippe said, I work for the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, in short, HD, which is a private peace mediation and dialogue organization headquartered in Geneva. But actually our mediators are mainly based in the field, in the locations of all main violent conflicts in the world, where they work directly with political and armed conflict parties to reach agreements, to prevent, mitigate, and resolve armed conflict, and to foster the conditions for peace. And I work actually in the mediation support and policy unit in Geneva, where I focus on environmental peacemaking together with my colleagues. What we've actually witnessed over the past years is that there's an increase in violence related to the environment, but also in the number of conflicts that have an impact on the environment. And so far, when we look at the mediation field, there's still not enough attention to environmental issues in peace processes. But we also see that the practice is slowly changing. So there are more and more mediation organizations that are trying to adapt their tools and practices to see how they can make peace processes more environmentally sensitive. And HD is very much part of these efforts as an organization. And we're developing environmental peacemaking operations to address this nexus between environment, climate, peace, and conflict. Maybe just to clarify, because we've been using the term environmental peace building, but at HD we focus on environmental peacemaking, and that's because we're an organization that's focused on ending armed conflict, so essentially a peacemaking organization. And that's why for us, we use a bit of a narrower definition. So for us, environmental peacemaking includes all practices that include, use, or frame the environment either as an entry point to or an element of peace mediation and dialogue processes, and that have then a positive impact on both the environment, but also peace, so positive peace and environmental outcomes. And when we look at HD's operations, actually we're working across different levels, so ranging from very localized community-based dialogue to national dialogue and interstate regional mediation. And we actually see the importance of the environment growing on all of those levels. So what we're trying to do is address it also on all of those levels and connect them with one another to make peace processes more environmentally sensitive. So far, we focused mainly on the local and regional levels. And I just want to give actually a few examples of how our work looks like in practice.
Please, we are very interested in that.
Perfect. Yeah, it's just a snapshot, but really just to give you also an idea of how different environmental peacemaking operations can look like. So on a very local level, HD has worked a lot with communities in the Sahel to reach agreements that prevent and resolve agro-pastoralist conflicts, which are also in part driven by the effects of climate change on scarce resources. And what we've also done is we've facilitated the creation of a network of community mediators across the Sahel. So I think right now we're at 1,900 community mediators, and they work across 5 countries in the Sahel and address really micro-level disputes related to natural resources. And currently our Nigeria team is, for example, piloting a project where they're looking how to develop and test local resource sharing agreements. Then looking more at the regional level, what we've done is using environmental problems as an entry point for dialogue between conflict parties to promote cooperation, so as a confidence building tool. And one example is in Eastern Europe, where HD has facilitated an informal dialogue, an evidence-based dialogue based on environmental and public health risks of interstate conflict. So we brought together officials, environmental experts, and scientists. So I think that links also quite well to what was said before of how to bring in science into dialogue processes, for example. And similarly, a similar example is the South China Sea, where also on a regional level, HD has facilitated a dialogue between policymakers and experts to look at what could be practical steps to manage Coast Guard interactions at sea, but also to ensure the sustainability of South China Sea fisheries management. So these are just a few examples of some of the activities that we have carried out as an organization in terms of environmental peacemaking. And we've been doing this work de facto for a bit of, over half a decade, but really having a special focus on the environment is quite a new and recent practice. But we already see that the work is generating specific impacts. And I want to just name a few, also linked to the examples I just mentioned before. So for example, on the local level, our community mediators resolve an average of 260 micro-level disputes per year. And when we look at agreements, we have facilitated, for example, in Nigeria, the Kafanchan Peace Declaration between 29 communities and the Southern Plateau Declaration between 56 communities. And in both of these declarations, communities actually make commitments to land, water sharing, and pasture, but they also address issues such as crop destruction, grazing reserves, or livestock routes. So these are just 2 examples of declarations we facilitated. And then looking more at the regional level, in Eastern Europe, this informal dialogue that we hosted actually led to informal coordination mechanisms and also to the integration of environmental issues into official ceasefire monitoring. And in the South China Sea, the parties have actually agreed on a framework regulating Coast Guard interactions at sea to prevent an escalation of violence and environmental degradation. So we see there actually promising early impacts and results. But I think it's also really important to keep in mind that there's still much more work needed. And what we as an organization really want to focus on, and I think a lot of partners do the same, is to really focus on what are these environmental outcomes for us. So how can they look like? And actually also how can we then provide evidence for the effectiveness of our environmental peacemaking programs, both from a climate and environment perspective, but also from a conflict resolution perspective. So really having these dual outcomes and dual communities in mind. Annika actually asked me, okay, how does Geneva fit into all of this, and how does Geneva support our operationalization of this work on the ground, given that we are an organization with a decentralized focus and only relatively small headquarters in Geneva. And I would say that having a presence in Geneva is for us quite important to stay up to date with the latest developments and also research and policies that then can feed directly into our programs on the ground. And I also believe that having a presence in Geneva is really puts us in a privileged position, because we have the opportunity to share our insights and learnings from peacemaking engagements on the ground with a wider community. And as one example, the dialogues that the Geneva Peacebuilding platform is hosting, I think they're a really good format to do that. And the learnings from the ground can then also feed back into policy discussions and improve wider mediation practice. So I think it's a bit of a loop, and that's why having a presence in Geneva is definitely very helpful. Looking ahead to come to an end, I think as a mediation field, there's still quite a lot to do, and we heard it also in the panel discussion yesterday that there's a need for capacity building of mediators in terms of environmental peacemaking. But one point I also would like to highlight is that it's really important to create complementary partnerships and exchanges with climate and environmental experts, because this will ultimately help mediators to improve their conflict analysis skills, and also then to see what are the peace and environmental outcomes of their work. So I would say that Geneva can be or is already a hub for incubating and then sustaining such partnerships, and that going forward, we should maybe strive to further bridge the gap between the peace building and environmental communities also here in Geneva. So yeah, thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Lina. I'm very impressed by this work. First question, if you may explain to us how you are doing that. An example, you have a community work in Sahel. How are you reaching these people, and in relation with the countries, with the governments? I imagine that it is really complicated to do that. Can you give us a little information about that?
Yeah, sure. I think, I mean, probably our teams in the field would be better placed to answer this, but I think it's really the decentralized structure of HD as an organization, and really having a local presence that makes it possible to be in touch with these local communities, to understand the conflicts and issues they are facing. So I think it's really this local presence that allows us to have these contacts. And I think something that you mentioned also, because you brought up the state, it's quite important also to link local level work to the national level. And I think that's definitely a challenge, but that's also one that we're working on, because we have quite a broad network as an organization. So we have contacts to very local actors, but then also to national government actors. And I think that's also something that can be used then to make sure that the agreements that are included on a local level, they're then afterwards connected in the implementation phase also to the state level, let's say, and also that maybe institutions are in place to safeguard the peace.
And with UN organizations, or UNDP, UNEP, or development agencies from countries also, how is it working?
yeah, I mean, we were interacting with actually a lot of different actors and also cooperating with the UN, but I think that's an area where we could probably expand also more to work with really environmental organizations or agencies on the ground, and maybe also see how our work can then be followed up by the peace or connects with the peace building work, I would say. So that's.
Congratulations, very agile organization. Monsieur Poti is not here.
Yes, he's there for the conclusion. He will be.
You will come.
He's there.
I am with you online. Je suis avec vous. Bonjour, Excellence et Monsieur l'ambassadeur.
Intervenir maintenant. Would you want to take the floor yet?
As you wish. I could indeed bring on some reflections on what has been said, and thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to be with you. And apologies that I can't be in the room. I would have wished, but my agenda is such that, and that's the magic of being online, that you can jump from one meeting to the other, and therefore be still with this discussion, which is very important in the International Geneva. And it is important because we've heard it from the speakers. Actually, what we're facing is a triple planetary crisis. So we've got a loss of biodiversity, a climate change crisis, as Ambassador as mentioned in Mongolia notably, and a pollution crisis. And these three crises are interrelated, feeding each other, and actually creating a system where we need common action and more interaction between UN agencies and between international actors. And the thing is that these crises, which have now become accepted by all as realities, are not simple things to solve. They're there for the next century. We've had COVID, it was hard. We're nearly out of it, hopefully, if the vaccine is well distributed around the world. But these triple planetary crises, they are there to stay. And they will be the challenge of the 21st and maybe the 22nd century. And these crises have an impact on ecosystems. And ecosystems are the source of life, but they are also the source of conflict, as we've heard. And so if we've got degraded ecosystems because of the crisis, because of human activities, we will have more and more crises and more conflicts. So we need to build a long-lasting peace. And if we want to achieve this long-lasting peace and the SDGs, we need to have a long-lasting relation to healthy ecosystems. And that's the challenge. This is what we bring as well as UNEP into the International Geneva, together with FAO, for example, with the ecosystems decade, with the decade of ecosystem restoration, to have government invest and private sector invest in what is the most important natural resource that we have, our ecosystems. Without them, there's no life on Earth. Without them, we're not speaking here virtually or physically. So we need really to reinvent a positive relation to the environment, because environment at the end of the day, it's not one of the boxes of development. It is the box of development. And any eco-social, any peace engagement, any security engagement derives from what happens and what we do with the environment. So of course, while Nairobi as the headquarters of UNEP is the heart of multilateral environment policies and of defining what environmental policies are, the role of Geneva and of all international institutions based in Geneva is to learn the challenges that the environment brings to them, to incorporate them transversally into their policies. And then from this incorporation in a transversal way, to put them at the heart, at the center of their analysis. And that's the call that we make. And I think that's the call that I'm hearing in the room today. Because as we go towards a new session of the UN Environment Assembly, and as we go towards Stockholm Plus 50, that celebrates the moment in history where the world realized that actually we are killing our ecosystems, and therefore we will kill human life, as we're going to celebrate this 50th anniversary, we need to put peace building around the environmental dimension of development. It is not a Security Council issue. It is really a socio-economic issue. And therefore, Geneva, as such, as the heart of the SDGs, has got to be involved and to be at the forefront of greening this development and greening this policy. So this is really the message I wanted to bring, but I hear from the conversation that is ongoing today, but also throughout the week in these peace building discussions in Geneva, that the understanding of this dimension is clearer and clearer for all decision makers as we move forward. So thanks a lot. That's really a pleasure.
Well, no, Patti, you've really spoken to my heart. One person is so convinced that everything we want to do for a better world depends on our capacity to maintain or to preserve ecosystems in their largest definition. And I'm so happy that the director of the European Office of UNEP is telling these words. Really, I'm so happy, because there are still many areas, many organizations where this message does not come through, and many politicians. So thank you so much. And please say it again and again and again. You know, my philosophy master, he was an artist and naturalist in Geneva, Robert Hénard. And he was trying, that was in the year 1930, 40. He was always trying to give this message. Nature is so important, and nobody thinks about nature. And he has written a book, which is title is "Et la nature" with question mark. You always forget nature. So you gave us a fantastic answer to that, and I'm very happy. Thank you so much. We will receive some questions from the floor, but I don't know. Pardon.
They're from the internet. Ils sont en ligne de
Ah.
chat box.
Ok, ils peuvent parler.
Ça, c'est des questions de la chat box.
Ah oui, d'accord, oui, c'est là comment on dit.
Mais j'ai écrit, oui.
Okay, so if you agree, I will read these questions to see some one of us would like to give an answer, and then we will make a last round around the table so that everyone can still give a crucial word. So the first question is, behind many environmental current negotiations exist geopolitical challenges. Clearly, that's not only environment, also geopolitical and conflicts. Would you see experiences in the field of disarmament that could be a relevant source of inspiration for work on environmental issues? Unfortunately, Mr. Bauman is not.
He's there.
Again, here?
He's here, yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry, I don't see well.
No, he's there.
Well, how can the experience of in disarmament negotiations could be useful to address environmental issues? Do you see some relation, possible lessons to be drawn from the experience of disarmament? Very interesting questions, difficult. Ambassador, sorry.
Yes, Philippe, it's such an interesting panel that I decided to still stay on and to listen. But after that, I will really have to leave. But if you allow, I will maybe. I don't think I have an answer, but some elements of reflection maybe for this question. And I saw there was another one maybe that was also somehow raised at me on JESDA. I might answer the two of them. So on the first one, I think it's difficult to really compare processes. What I realized in Geneva, when you move from one institution, and also from one process to another, even if you have the same, I mean, states in the end that are involved, but the dynamics and the mechanisms are sometimes really very, very different. But what is of course true is that the geopolitical challenges and the conflict lines, well, they are the same, of course, from one topic to another. So where I could see a certain number of linkages is in a certain number of areas, as for example, let's say the arms trade, which is also a Geneva-based process, on urban warfare, for example, and the consequences on how to protect the natural environment in armed conflicts. And then, of course, also the areas, the concerned areas might overlap, and so it could be one issue is to reflect on possible synergies between processes. One mechanisms which I see, and that's more in the field of what we call humanitarian disarmament. I mean like demining or the cluster munitions, for example, where we have some good mechanisms of cooperation between the UN system, between the experts, but also outside experts, the donor countries, the affected countries, and this could be, I mean, it's not a model, but it's maybe one way of looking at issues, and maybe it's worth looking if in certain areas, like also ammunition management, for example, it's another topic that could be a bridge, and it's also a topic that has now a new UN process, which will partly be in Geneva, which we could look at. And then the second question, very short, just the Geneva, for those who don't know, the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator is the last comer on the newcomer in the International Geneva as a foundation, whose aim is, well, in a nutshell, very short, to frame how or what kind of international governance is needed to make sure that the frontier technologies of the coming years, like IA or quantum computing or neurosciences, for example, how they have to be framed and in order to ensure the maximum benefits for humanity while reducing the risks. So that's the aim of GESTA. Now, well, climate change, as far as I know, is one of the priorities of GESTA. They are, however, not in the peace building. I think they have an expertise on this, but that's again a possibility, certainly to exploit and again in the spirit of what we said before, the International Geneva, of having partnerships between different platforms, different organizations, bringing in different angles or in different competencies. So thank you. Over to you, Philippe.
Thank you so much, Felix, for your contribution, which really show how much all this crisis and all this way of dealing with them are related. And it's really the added value of this conference, and to show that and to invite all actors to really work together and to share their experience. So really, thank you so much, Felix. Now I have a question about the private diplomacy. I don't know exactly what it is, but do you see a role for private diplomacy plus to advance urgent climate action, connecting it to peace and environment? It's a very big question, short question, but big. I don't know if somebody wants to say a word about what private diplomacy maybe.
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, thank you. I think they need long definition. What is the private diplomacy? It's, therefore, is I would say the role of diplomacy is definitely very crucial for the environment talks. And thank you also the UNEP colleague and really the UNEP economic part is here. Also, we are working also very closely, and also the Ambassador Bauman mentioned the just that just the new created one. There was, I think, 2 days ago there was a presentation for the ambassadors here. It was quite interesting presentation and also the questions. So really, we are in that time of the interrelated world, because this world became so complex. So everything is related, interrelated. So even you see 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even the master class, so studies were different. You focus on the law, that's all, or you only focus some economic issues, and that's all. But now, if you're going to study only law, you have no chance to get any job. You should, besides the law, you should make some environment or some technology. So it's all interrelated. The same also for the today's diplomacy. For the today's diplomacy also is everything interrelated. It's the politics, geopolitics, economic, environment, it's everything. Also, even the soft power, even the social media is a part of the diplomacy. And therefore, it's the same also for the environment. I think environment is quite good now in the priority of any talks, even in the diplomacy. And there are people that are very knowledgeable. That's no more any issue for the green parties and others, but everybody is talking about the environment. And therefore is in some, as you said in the beginning, you are environmentalists. Maybe environmentalists have some very special language, but in the other hand, diplomats have also some special language, and then they should come together. It is good start, already very well interrelated, and then languages are there, and therefore is, I think, a role for the diplomats and ambassadors, also governments, is crucial to tackle the environmental issues. Again, for the environmentalists, is very important to reach out with the common language, not only special language, but the common language to reach out, be understandable for the ordinary people. Also for the social media, also politicians. Right? So that is the new, as I said shortly, is interrelated world. Very complex.
Fantastic. What a nice, it's not really a conclusion, but I could take it like this. Fantastic synthesis of the reality and our discussion. And you're showing how diplomacy has become such a broad responsibility with the complexity of the world. And congratulations, because we have today with us 2 ambassadors who really are sure that are able to address this complexity. And we are really thankful to you, Ambassador Ludwig, Ambassador Bauman, to have brought this view. And we are happy to be represented by such clever and open-minded people. So thank you so much. Do we like perhaps to make a last tour of the table in the same order to see a commentary to the rich discussion we have? Annika, may I give you the floor?
I would be pleased. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for your contributions today. I think Ambassador Bauman has finally had to jump off, but thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your contribution. It's been interesting, but also for the leadership, I think, both for Mongolia and for Switzerland, that genuinely makes our work possible. So I just wanted to start there. I will maybe say, I'll use my conclusion time to answer one question that I saw in the chat. We can see it on the screen up here, which was maybe about recommendations for young professionals. The concept of intergenerational exchange is essential in most issues, but especially essential when it comes to climate change and the world that we will inherit and that we are inheriting. So there were a couple of questions about sort of concrete opportunities and how can young people participate in international Geneva. And there are a couple of networks. There's the UN group, the UN Major Group on Children and Youth, excuse me. There are some networks through the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, including the Global Biodiversity Youth Network. There's another group called Coalition Wild. So I just named these because I know there are a few young professionals on this line who are looking for recommendations. But I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to actually take the opportunity to speak to some of the non-young people, those people who are no longer classified as youth these days. And just to also encourage you it's also you who make these opportunities possible. It's also us who make these opportunities possible. I know I've worked with colleagues before who, for example, would not accept to speak on a panel. If I had a male colleague who would not accept to speak on a panel if he was the only male. And so he would sort of force that diversity in a way to say, if you want me, then you have to make this panel more diverse. And so also just to say for young professionals, especially when it comes to the environment and building a peaceful world, they are an essential sort of part of the equation. Just to say that there's also a role for those of you who are no longer young professionals to force and to include that diversity. And if you ever need recommendations of talented young people to bring into your conversations, just contact me. I have lists in my network. So above all, this has just been a fascinating conversation to hear different perspectives about how states are considering this issue, about the operationalization within, for example, HD. And I just want to say thank you again for having me along.
Thank you very much, Annika, for your synthesis and conclusion. Ambassador Bauman is not now anymore. I think I don't know if he wants to say a last word.
He's not there.
He had to go. Okay. Ambassador Lundegg, do you want to have a last word? Very rich contribution to our panel, and I'm very thankful to you for that. And I will never forget Mongolia in my heart.
So thank you again. That was very interesting round table, and enjoyed very much. Also, last that intergeneration talks is important, and also that the young people should also be listening, not only actively participating, but learning from experiences. That's important. The humanity, I think the mistake is human, and then even the young people, the reason is to learn from the mistakes from previous generations. Also, therefore, the many developing countries is the same. If we didn't want to make the mistake same, which is the industrial countries made in the stage of the industrialization. So therefore is I think that any exchange and networking is important, and that very grateful, very thankful that the Geneva Environment Network, also Geneva Hub, also Geneva City itself, they're playing also a major role for the diplomacy, and I hope that's not only for the environment. We hope to be experiencing now the whole Ukraine crisis and all others. So Geneva is going to play also again also in the coming days, months, weeks, also major role in the world stage, and I hope that's all the part. And then of the diplomats as ambassadors, we're very privileged to also contribute to communicate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a nice message. Really, really moved by that. Lina, Nila, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, I think it was an excellent discussion and really interesting also to hear the many different perspectives that we had on today's panel. I think I will be quite brief, but I just wanted to come back to something that also Annika touched on in the beginning, what Geneva is and what it's maybe not. So I think we all agreed here that International Geneva has a key role to play for in mobilizing for environmental peace building, but that we also should recognize that in the end, the environmental peace building solutions, they come from the ground and they're bottom up. So I think what we can do here in Geneva is really to highlight what works on the ground and to strengthen cooperation, and then also to make sure that the solutions and experiences that exist on the ground, they're mobilized and then brought to the attention of policymakers. But I just wanted to bring up this point again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And you are just showing us how you are doing this with your organization in the ground, and that's certainly a fantastic contribution. But the contact with the others is important, and this nexus in Geneva is confirmed today as so important. But and I say that at Swiss and at Geneva people, but it is just so because of you, you all, and there is an agreement that we find each other here to know each other, to better know, and I think better we know each other, better we respect each other, and there is a way for diplomacy in this context. Personally, I'm in the board of GCSP, Geneva Center for Security Policy, and that's exactly what happens there, meeting among people from very different regions, geopolitical situations. They just learn to be together, to work together, as you are doing that, all of you. And I'm so happy that this roundtable, this panel can reconfirm this role, and I hope it will be still successful. Is Bruno
I'm still with you. Thanks a lot. And let me.
We will be very happy to listen to you.
Just very quickly, as we're reaching the end of the this panel discussion, let me also underline the importance of the intergenerational responsibility that was mentioned just now. It is crucial because as much as it is also an effort, a holistic effort which is needed by all international agencies and all international actors, it is also an intergenerational effort that we need. And I just want to mention one thing about geopolitics, and it's true that we often look at peace and security issue from a geopolitics angle, separating them as if they were something different by nature. Actually, they are embedded in ecosystems again, and the environment, because of its transboundary nature, is also geopolitical by essence. And I would really encourage everyone to look at geopolitics through that environmental angle, because the key to peace and the key to peaceful solutions is very often found in the human being's relation to the ecosystems. So thanks a lot. Really interesting to be with you today.
I could not have imagined a better conclusion. Thank you very much, Bruno Pozzi. Diana, do you have something to say at the end? For my part, I would say, when I look at this world, I'm sometimes really, I question myself, what is the future? And sometimes I'm a little desperate. But after having listened to you, every one of you, I feel really better in this world, because I feel that there are so many good people, clever, with good intentions, that I am reassured that we will make it. And I want to thank you so much for your contributions today, but still much more for your engagement in your different functions with courage, with cleverness. And I wish you the best, you and your action for the future. Thank you very much for your contributions.
Yes, thank you all. And we encourage everybody to join the other sessions of the Environmental Peacebuilding Conference. There's still today and tomorrow a lot of interesting sessions to join. So visit the program and join the other sessions.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.